Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, how are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build, and today, as some of you have suggested that I build a Blue Ridge Caravan themed build, I thought we'd head up into the Savage Divide and work on that idea, as it's a pretty cool one. So, let's jump in. So yeah, there's a couple of locations in the game that already have a strong Blue Ridge Caravan theme, so I've sort of taken that as a starting point and then sort of 76ified it a bit more, as they use quite a lot of Fallout 4 assets, or formerly Fallout 4 assets, so it's a bit of a weird vibe. We'll take a quick look here at where we are. You can see we're right next to Fort Atlas. The map actually makes it look like we're a little bit to the south of it, but if you head out of the entrance and then turn more or less north up the road, it's on the corner, just heading north from Fort Atlas. It's a little weird looking at the map location, but it's just on the corner as it sort of turns around a little bit up from the Fort Atlas entrance. So, we've got this kind of clearing here. You can see the remains of a car chassis there, which unfortunately I couldn't clear away, which is a bit unfortunate. That should give away exactly where this spot is if you walk up the road from Fort Atlas. But, we're going to start off with the main structure here and just sort of place it in the, well, sort of off to the side of this area here where that will be sort of the main clearing. Trees on the right again get bulldozed, but this one that we're sort of standing underneath won't. But we're going to get this in, sort of eyeball it, see how it looks, see how it fits with the space available, make sure it's not too close to the tree because I don't really want the branches clipping in if I can avoid it. So a few adjustments still needed there. There we go, that's a bit closer. Get an eyeball from the road. So you see we're on the corner there, so a couple of angles to get a decent look at this place from. So we'll get these 4 foundations in. Basically, it's going to be a central tower with sort of an extension around the outside of it when we're done. So we'll start in the middle and kind of work outwards with this. So foundations in, let's get a couple of staircases in. Very happy we can now just snap those on top of each other. It is by far and away the most practical way of building a nice tidy confined staircase, even if the texture options are not quite ideal yet. So we've got a couple of floors in there just on the side, nice and easy, and that's the main sort of skeletal structure of the tower. But we have a slight hiccup here. Unfortunately, for some weird reason, this particular wall won't go in, and I think it's just a little bit too close to the ground in that right-hand corner. So we'll pull everything down a moment and adjust. So more or less happy with the position of this, but we want to tweak it a little bit. So push it back a bit, adjust the angle just a tiny bit. And this should mean that once we get these floors back in, we're a little bit more room around this corner at the front where the tree is, and then hopefully a little bit further off the ground so we'll get the wall in. Looks pretty promising to me. There we go. So, let's put the rest of this back together again. Stairs in, floors back in, and we can get some walls on. So keeping this fairly simple, we're going to have these sort of slotted vertical windows at the front and the back, and I'll change these side ones over so that the square windows with a kind of grill on them are on the side. So you can do it any way you like. This is the Brotherhood of Steel Set that was in the previous season. Quite a nice little set this, has a bit of a different texture, bit of concrete vibe. And it forms a nice kind of central piece for this tower that we'll then dress up with different textures as we go on. So we'll get the last of these walls just tucked in nice and easy now. If that wants to actually acknowledge my button press, there we go. Stick the last couple in. It's a bit fiddly getting these to snap in next to the stairs sometimes, just because it's awkward like that, but they will go in. See? And there we go, that's the core structure. So, I want this top section to be a kind of lookout tower, storage area, and then we'll decorate it up with some extra stuff as well. But obviously railings are required, but they won't go around the stairs, so we're going to have to work around this slight issue. We fortunately can take the floor out and they'll just sit on top of the walls just fine, so it's going to allow us to sort of work around the problem. So I'm going to put a half floor in over there, and then we'll get a staircase to snap to that in a moment, but we'll have to take this lower one out first. Unfortunately, these walls are now causing problems. But seeing as those railings are quite willing to float a moment, we'll stick this floor in here, another half one at the bottom, the staircase in, come on, snap forward. There we go. And now we basically have support for what will now be a new floor here, now that we've taken this top stair out. So we're going to use the full-size floor pieces rather than the half ones. You can use the halves, but you're just going to make life difficult for yourself if you do. So this way we can just snap the railing straight around the edge of the large ones. So bang, 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 bang. Nice and tidy. Now we've got railings all the way around. These floors can come back out. The railings will stay quite happily. We'll find the staircase again when I remember which one I want. Not actually that one. Close, but not quite. Where is it? There it is. And this took a little bit of persuading to get it to snap in. I don't know why, it just decided to be a bit awkward, but there we go. Got that sorted. We can take this temporary one back out again, put the floors back in, put the walls back in as well, and we will have our completed main tower. So, there we go. Nice and simple. So dropping down to the lower level, we're going to start the bit that's going to more or less surround this. It's effectively going to be just a cut-off corner on it here on the left where the tree is, but using the haunted house porch here just to put a little bit of variety and then offset the entrance here a little bit, rather than just having it straight on over that gap there. And then we'll get some wooden walls for now, but we're going to sort of change this out and mix up the textures as we go around. For now, I want to close this off, so in order to put a roof on there, I want an angled roof, so we'll put the first triangular piece in on the top there just to have a snapping guide effectively. And it wants to cooperate, there we go, so that's in. Now we've got a gap here on the top right, which we're going to plug with another triangular piece, but we'll need some support for that first, so we can put the doorway in there, and there we go. We could actually take the doorway out, and I actually will do later on, but do that in the decoration phase. So, moving around to the edge of the building, we're just going to run this foundation set all the way around the building, with the exception of, as I say, this one corner here. We're going to get some walls in here. I'm putting doorways in for now because I had another idea that I wanted to try out that it would have involved swapping out the foundations, but that didn't work out, so ended up going with plan B. So there's no actual need to use doors here. So we'll change those in a moment, but for now, let's get this angled roof on the top. When it wants to snap, it's a little bit awkward, corners being what they are. Now across the back edge here, I'm going to put a little balcony in, because I like balconies and it changes up the shape a little bit, which is always a good plan. We have to snap it to the floors inside the main building there, otherwise it will not have anything to snap to as it wants a staircase. But that works just fine. Now we can do the corners. And there we go. So obviously, once again, we've got a couple of little holes that need plugging up. So again, the triangular pieces will do just fine, but they'll need some support underneath, otherwise they'll only go in the wrong way round. So we'll drop the wall underneath here when I find it. There it is. So doorway in this case, but whatever, it works. Stick that triangular piece on the top, doorway can come back out, and we'll put the floor back in again. There we go, nice and easy. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Put a couple of slanted walls here. For the one that sticks out onto the corner, on the end here, I'm going to use a corner roof piece, as it will just mash up with that triangular wall at the top there as well. Then everything will be neat and tidy. But here we will repeat what we did on the other corner and drop a doorway in. That's actually the wrong way round. We'll flip it around. Make sure the inside surface is facing inward. There's the triangular piece. Door back out, floor back in, and we are ready to go. So there we go. Now I'm just going to run around and change all these walls out, these doorways out for windows. So you can do it in any which way you want, and I'm going to change these out for different sort of building pieces. So there'll be warehouse pieces and other bits and pieces in there, just to mix it up, make it look a little bit more ramshackle, a little bit more interesting. I use some glass walls and I use some jail walls as well on it, but you'll see that during the tour. Stick a doorway in there to match things up. Core structure is more or less in place now. As you can see, the sort of lower level runs all the way around the outside of the tower, with the exception of that one corner on the front here. I'll get rid of that door later on. And leaves the tower poking over the top. So, on to the next bit. So, I haven't used the communist bunker in quite a while, and this is a player camp after all, so we're going to need somewhere for our crafting benches. A little headcanon for me, at least, was that any guards and caravan hands will probably need some tools to repair things and, you know, gear, clothing, weapons, that sort of thing, just as much as the vault dwellers will, so it's not completely crazy to have weapons benches and the like here. I'm going to assume this bunker was already in place and they decided to build alongside it, or some of the structure was and they've added onto it. We're going to line this up with the edge of the building we've just built, make sure it's not floating. I did try and put it in a few different places, but that was the one that worked best, because the ground's a little uneven on that side. And we're going to start the process of closing this sort of front area off and enclosing the camp as a whole by building a little garden plot here. Not really necessary as we've got plenty of open ground, but it does make it a little bit neater and tidier. A little right angle in the corner here. The highest point of the ground there is actually on the inner corner of those 3 foundations, if that helps you to find out where it is. But it's a bit awkward to place it, and I had to sort of play around with it a bit just to make sure it worked with the lie of the land. I had originally planned to have the outer edge run straight down to the communist bunker, but I ended up pushing the wall back a bit so it goes around the side of it. So I needed a little bit more room for some ideas I had. However, this outer edge is still going to be the outer edge of the camp, and as it's the backside of the sort of garden area and the outer edge of the camp, I wanted to make it look a little bit more interesting, make a bit more of a set piece out of it. So we're going to use these chain link fences. They will snap in just fine, but they're kind of a tiny bit temperamental in the sense that you have to manually line them up. So if you don't get them exactly right with this first one, by the time you get around the corner and down to the other end, it's just going to be sticking out at an odd angle or sticking out too far, as we can see there. So we need some adjustments. So several hours later, well, not quite, but you know, I managed to get those lined up perfectly, so it sits on the corner. And we now drip the railings back in. And there we go. I did think about putting something on the back of this to sort of shore it up, as it's obviously not bulletproof, but it just wasn't going to look right, and things would have been floating on the outside because of the slope of the ground. So we just sort of keep it as is, and it looks not too bad. I'll assume the blocked vision by the plants when we put them in there will make it harder for anybody to shoot through, or at least to see what they're shooting at. So, walling off this back edge, we're going with the junk fences, because they're great. And they work quite nicely here. We've got a little bit of floating, but there's a few spots where it kind of clips a little bit into the ground, which is nice as well. So, we'll have a couple of gaps to plug up at the end, but for now, this provides a nice bit of security. Most of the Blue Ridge locations in the game, I'd say most of them, there are only 2 as I recall, have some form of wall or defences around them to keep the wasteland denizens out, which is generally a sensible decision given all the beasties living in Appalachia. So we're going to carry on with that same idea, just lead this around. This particular back corner here is really finicky about where things will place, which is a bit annoying, but managed okay with this one. As I say, there's a couple of bits that need plugging up, but we can do that later. For now, we'll get this last junk wall in. This one's actually kind of snapping down to the edge of the bunker there. There's a sort of little ledge that runs around the outside of it that the thing's sitting on, which is why it's kind of snapping over a bit and clipping through the ground. But it looks much neater and tidier that way, so I'll go with it. And one last gap, and this is where the chain link fences really come into their own. This is the same sort of thing I used to do in Fallout 4 with chain link fences when I had them modded in. Just use them for filling in little gaps like that. Very, very handy. So that's that side done. We'll pick up the pace a little bit for this last bit, as this is fairly time consuming. We're going to just start off at this corner, go around the tree, which I don't think, as I say, we can bulldoze anyway, that particular one. And we'll incorporate the tree into the defences. A little bit of adjustment needed. As I say, again, we're on the slope of the land here, is a bit awkward, so we have to do what we can. But next up, we're going to want a kind of gateway. So, as per my often used style, we're going to use these tall guard posts, as they work quite well for sitting up either side of a gate post. Again, this one's clipped down quite nicely, which is alright. We managed to get it to sit nice and closely to that wall. Now I need to lift it up though, because I want it sitting far enough forward that we can see you down the road from the guard post. Otherwise there's not really much point to it after all. So there we go, it sticks out quite nicely. And then I had to faff around a lot with this, so we're going to use this billboard to sort of round out the gate, but in order to get it in and looking neat, I had to put that right-hand guard post in up against the car first, and then manoeuvre this billboard in afterwards. It took me a while to get that figured out, hence the large cut there. But if you do it in that order, get the guard post in first, you'll be able to make sure it looks neat with the other guard post on the left, and then you can sort of tidy up the gap a little bit with the billboard like that. Unfortunately that's not going to play, so it's going to have to stay where it is. And there we have it. We'll add a gateway to that and some chain link just to close up the gaps again a little bit more during the decoration phase, but it's basically the same principle as I'm using right here, which the wall I had used I wasn't quite happy with. It wasn't quite big enough. So we're using this larger junk wall again, which can nudge it in so it meets the edge of the foundation there, as close to the car as we can. Something else that won't bulldoze. You also can't build on it, which is somewhat inconvenient as well. But very carefully manoeuvre that into place. A little bit of a gap there, but nothing too much. Yeah, maybe a little bit too much. There we go. Now we're going to adjust this small chain link again, just to close off that last bit of the gap. There we go. It fits in that tiny little gap between the guard post and the car quite nicely. So there we go. Get rid of that, and we are nice and enclosed. So last but not least for the building, we're going to just put a couple of these concrete guard posts in just to kind of shore up the bottom of the walls, plug up the gaps along the edge here. You can see where we've got little floating bits as these will sink into the ground generally quite nicely. And after that, we will move on to the tour of the fully decorated product. So, let's take a look around. I thought we'd have a little walk in from the road for this tour, as it's supposed to sit next to the road as it'll be the main sort of thoroughfare through the Savage Divide here. It runs up past Fort Atlas. And we've got our little outpost just sat here on the edge of the sort of clearing, just up from there, as I say, Fort Atlas, and just a tiny little bit tucked out the way. A good little spot for the caravans to just stop off. Nice protected area where they've got some shelter and they can do some trading if they like. Nice wall going all the way around there. I've added a few extra bits there just to dress it up on the left. Some reverse junk fences. A couple of extra bits and pieces of concrete hedgehogs and things just outside to give it a little bit of extra texture. This has basically come up to the full build budget in the end. There's maybe one or two things I could squeeze in at most. I put a couple of extra trees in to replace the ones that have been bulldozed as well. All the ones around here are sort of autumnal style, as per most are in the Savage Divide, so I went with that so it blends in. There we go. Unfortunately, I would like to have something like a waving flag or a few more Blue Ridge options other than just the one flag that we've got, so I've sort of overused that a bit, but it kind of works. Some lights hanging off the billboard there, and you can see I've just tucked a gate in on the front as well. And it's got a couple of chain links just to either side of the gate because it doesn't quite fit in the gap, typically. So there we go. Here's our little kind of courtyard area. As you can see on the main building, I've swapped out a few of the wall pieces to change the textures up a bit. I did a few extra bits and pieces on the outside there just to, again, change the shape, change the form a little bit, make it a little bit more interesting for the eye. Plenty of bits of junk and stuff knocking around. A bathroom. A few street lamps because you kind of have to. We needed somewhere for the Brahmin to hang out when the caravans arrive, so apparently we've got one in here at the moment. Actually, that's the limit of the fertilizer producing Brahmin you can have in your camp, otherwise I'd have put 2 in, but it was kind of a faff to get the fertilizer sort of trough in there anyway at the back, so 1's enough. I've got a water pump and a bathtub for a trough for the Brahmin to drink out of as well in there. I just fenced it off, but that was the idea behind extending the wall out on that side of the bunker there. Taking a look inside the communist bunker, this, as I say, is my little crafting area. We've got to have one somewhere. Originally this was circular on the inside, but Bethesda changed it not too long after the piece was actually released, as obviously none of the furniture sits up against a circular wall very well. But it works quite nicely in here now. And they've long since fixed the issue with the floor as well, which actually they fixed within about a week, but results in quite a nice little compact space where we can squeeze everything we need in, except maybe a couple of the brewing stations. So some small sacrifices there, but we squeezed them in elsewhere, so it doesn't matter too much. So we'll close the door and head on back around. Put the cooking station out front as well, just because I felt it was a bit more in keeping with the sort of transient nature of the caravans coming through, and having a regular old kitchen inside just kind of, it wouldn't fit and it wouldn't really look right, I didn't think, so I kind of like that one as well, having the spit out there. That's rug glitch the fire underneath it, but hey, it works. A few solar panels around, a couple of stash boxes just to dress up the guard post a little bit there. As I say, we've basically filled out the budget on this, so it would have been nice to add a few extra bits, but sadly there is no room. Loads of Blue Ridge flags everywhere because, you know, we've got to make it thematic somehow. See, I've tucked the brewing station just in the corner there. We'll head inside the jail pieces, which, again, they just kind of give it an open vibe, but sort of enclosed open rather than having it really too solid like the rest of the structure would. And it just makes it look a little different. Same with this glass wall on the end here. Little area here for the caravan hands to hang out. A couple of sofas, chairs, a little TV. Not that there's going to be much to watch, but hey, I gather there is. Some reading material. In terms of having appropriate wall decor for this, apart from that I didn't have a huge amount left over, besides the flags, there's not a lot of stuff that really fits with the caravan vibe, so I'll put a few bits and pieces up that I don't use very often. Couple of plants around here and there. Again, there's not really much more budget left to squeeze stuff in this side, so we've got a little bedside table here and there, a few lights. They're not staying long, so it just provides them somewhere to grab 40 winks before they push on up the road, I guess. Or back down it, depending which way they're going. I rarely use those steel building pieces that you see in the corner there, but I thought we'd mix it up and add one in today. There's a couple of the Thanksgiving candles in bottles there as well, which I picked up specifically while I had the chance. Thought I'd add them in here because they work quite nicely. Don't put out much light, but they're nice centerpieces for tables, which we've recently discussed there are not anywhere near enough of, so it's a good option for dressing your tables up a little bit. Grab them while they're still in the atomic shop. So we'll close that door and have a little look in at the bar, hence the saloon doors. So, like the spot at Big Ben Tunnel West, I think it is, they have a little bar in there, and, well, they do since Steel Rain anyway. So I thought we'd add something similar down here, and it meant I had somewhere to put my vendors in as well. Nice little space to hang out, a few bits and pieces on the wall. So the wallpaper's quite nice and clean, but without being too intrusive or too clean for the wasteland, if that makes any sense. It's not quite as destroyed as it needs to be really for the wasteland, but it works. A few displays at the back, little table under the stairs, and we'll head upstairs to the Blue Ridge office. Again, office is a bit of a challenge. I really want terminals to put on the desks, but as we still don't have any, I'll use the old standby TVs. Not quite sure who came up with that idea first, but a few people over the last God knows how many years have borrowed that idea, so it sort of works. You get the idea anyway. And up to the top of the tower, which, as I say, it's meant to be kind of a guard post, but it's a sufficiently large area up here that it would look weird, just leaving it open. So we've got a bit of storage, and I stuck a pool table up here for the caravan guards to entertain themselves at, should they so desire. Unfortunately, we haven't got any pool balls for it, but yeah, we'll assume they're all down the pockets or something. But we're going to stick a display mannequin up there with the Blue Ridge outfit as well, so it's got somebody on guard duty. We've got a few lights up top as well. It's just electric street lights. They've got wires running around them. They don't put out that much light, these street lamps, so it's just enough to illuminate this top area at night without it being sort of overbearing and brightening the whole camp or being visible from miles away or anything like that. Got the asylum lights in there that I'm forever getting from daily ops as well. We'll swing out onto the balcony. So a little seating area, and I suppose I can just toss the chairs out the way and fire down if any troublemakers come up the road as well. So nice little corner to hang out this. Again, not vast amounts of decoration out here, just enough to dress it up a bit, but as I say, limited budget as usual. Well, you can stand up here and cover the backside of the camp as well if need be, which is always good, or the outpost in this case. It gives them a nice, it's not exactly privacy, but it's probably the closest they're going to get to privacy if they want to hang out and have a little bit of time on their own in this sort of place. Caravan hands when they drop by, or the office workers who are probably permanent residents. And we will swing on back down through the bar. I can't remember which flooring set that is. I'm not sure if it was Atomic Shop or not. I think it probably was a recently added Atomic Shop set, but I haven't used it before, and it looks quite nice, that sort of rough stone. Works quite well for a bar. I do like that table under the stairs as well. Going with a slightly larger table under there for a larger group has worked out quite nicely. I like that. A rare opportunity to use those saloon doors as well, which is quite welcome. Quite pleased that I managed to keep some of the trees in place as well. In this case I didn't really have a lot of choice, but it means the build blends slightly more into the environment, which I'm generally in favour of. And there we go. The piece is not exactly ideal for this one, but as close as I can manage for a Blue Ridge Caravan Outpost just up by Fort Atlas. So, thank you very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this one. A little bit of a longer one, but wanted to show you as much as I could without preferably keeping you here all day, so do appreciate. If you did like the video, please do consider dropping subs and likes. We very much appreciate it. And down below you can find social media links, merch store, and channel memberships as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in that way, it very much helps out. Hugely appreciate that as well. Do keep an eye out for live streams as well, of course. We are playing Fallout 76, the new updates just around the corner, and playing The Witcher as well, which is a lot of fun. So do join us for those. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.